If you are joining us for the first time, hello and welcome. If you're a returning supporter and friend, welcome back. This is Unboxing Economics. Today we'll be taking a look back at a very controversial and ugly chapter in Australian history. I tentatively describe as evil. On this channel we have examined history and do not seek to defend or excuse any action by any individual country, institution or government. We simply examine the facts and seek to learn lessons from them. However, on this occasion, we will view this area with a judgmental lens of modernity. I refer, of course, to the White Australia policy. Let's get straight into it. The White Australia policy was concerned primarily with immigration-based policies which sought to do two things. Number one, encourage the number of migrants from the UK and Europe, and to discourage immigration from other parts of the world, specifically Asia and Africa. When referencing the White Australia policy, the main legislative instrument in question is the Immigration Act 1901. This was one of the very first acts of Parliament passed after Federation. On the 7th of August 1901, the first Prime Minister, Mr. Edmund Barton, put forward this bill to the House not only vehemently, but as a symbol of what Australia ought to be and would become. It was considered widely and clearly that upon Federation, the new nation of Australia would seek to hold closely the values and culture of Great Britain. One of the reasons stated for the implementation of this policy was racial tensions between European and Asian migrant workers in the goldfields during the gold rush of the mid-19th century. The Immigration Restriction Act 1901 would be abolished in 1947, although the White Australia policy would not be fully unwound until 1973. The primary way in which this act sought to restrict migration was through use of a dictation test. This 50-word test could be administered to any prospective migrant at the discretion of the Department of Immigration. Hence, if you looked a certain way, there's a good chance you could well be tested. This test could be administered in any European language, and for some of its tenure could be given to a participant an unlimited number of times. Whilst the test did not have a specific stated intention, the unstated intention was clear, and that was to exclude people that could not speak English. The test was eventually abolished in 1958. The test was a central part of the Act. Most members of Parliament did support the essence of the White Australia policy. However, there was some debate about how best it be implemented. Mr. Chris Watson, who would go on to become Australia's third Prime Minister, stated that he thought the test should not be administered to migrants from Asia or Africa. In his opinion, the dictation test, as oppressive as it was, did not go far enough, and that if an individual from these parts of the world did pass the test, as an educated individual, that person would be, quote, the worst kind of man to become an Australian. Edmund Barton himself, the Prime Minister at the time, was quoted as saying that these races are, in comparison to white races, unequal and inferior. After World War II, it was clear that Australia needed to expand its population for several reasons, both socially and economically. The White Australia policy, whilst still in existence, was relaxed a little. Migration went up significantly in this period of history. However, migration from the UK was still strongly encouraged. The programs including the £10 POM and the "we must populate or perish" mantra were common. One irony of the White Australia policy was that in trying to maintain a heritage-based link with the United Kingdom through a lens of race, the White Australia policy was disapproved of in principle by the British government. It was held that equality was a founding principle of Britain and its empire, and that any discrimination should never be tolerated, especially if it is to be written into law. It would perhaps be an interesting question for history to ask whether Britain's opposition to the White Australia policy was simply a function of skin colour, or Was it an objection to other Commonwealth nations, in this case Australia, refusing entry to other people from other Commonwealth nations? The policy was fully closed off in 1973 by the Whitlam government by removing all references to race-based discrimination in all immigration legislation and policy. I typically try and keep my personal opinion out of these videos, but on this occasion I will give my 2 cents. Going into the research for this video, I suspected that the formulation of this policy was, as Sir Robert Menzies put it, based on the idea that a homogeneous society created more stable and more socially cohesive communities, that it was not a function of superiority, but of camaraderie with shared history, values, language, and culture. However, I have learned this is anything but the case. I have found this to be a function of superiority, ignorance, arrogance, and separation in a manner that one could only describe as vile. It is my belief that prejudice is simply arrogance, and that the best solution for prejudice is more information or more interacting with the very thing you are prejudiced against. The White Australia policy not only encouraged separation on the basis of race, it didn't seem to allow for any further discussion or interaction, additional information on the topic. This remains a black mark and a blight on our history. We as a nation have plenty of room to improve. This has been Unboxing Economics. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and as always, remember, history is more than just a bunch of stuff that happened.